And what a lovely morning. Good morning.
Good morning. We've talked the whole night through.
Good morning.
Good morning to you.
You're listening to Power Talk Good Morning with Beth Ann and, well, I said that backwards, with Beth Ann and Melody Cedarstrom in the morning, where talk is real, truth is in the talk, and we believe there is power in truth. Good morning and Happy New Year.
Good morning and happy warm New Year.
Oh, my, it's not warm here. We're setting record lows in our global warming. Missouri does everything backwards.
I know. Every text I get, every email, it's all about, where's global warming? Where's global warming? Like, I mean, I do believe there are things going on with our weather, but I mean, it is winter, and it gets cold in the winter. And there's all kinds of...
We believe in climate change. It's called seasons.
Yes. Absolutely correct.
Actually, you know, that is a good topic for another show. There is some things going on, and I know we're going to have all kinds of callers when we do talk about that. And we're not going to talk about it today, so don't call us on the weather today. But there are just as many scientists that are predicting that it's global cooling, and it has nothing to do with mankind. It is a cycle, and we're headed back into it. And that those who are screaming global warming are doing us an injustice because we're not preparing for what's ahead. So that's just a topic that for another day, but I thought I'd throw that out there because it is cold in Missouri. I don't know if we set the record low, but we tied it. And it was -5, I believe, this morning.
And we're supposed to have some nice temperatures next week in the 40s here on the Eastern Shore. So I am looking forward to that. But in the meantime, we're going to have like a high of 10 or 17, which isn't bad.
Having a heat wave.
Having a heat wave.
Heat wave.
Gold's having a heat wave today. It's up $10.90 in early morning trade, $1,314. Silver's up 19 cents because I know a lot of our listeners are holding gold and silver, and there's a lot of our listeners that should be buying gold and silver. So this is why I give the prices for gold and silver. Silver's up 19 cents today at $17.20. Platinum's up $8 today at $941. Palladium is the winner of the day, up almost 2.5%, up $26 this morning at $1,089. Let's move on over to see what the U.S. dollar is. It's down another 0.29 at 91.94, so a lot of pressure on the dollar. Crude oil's down a couple cents today at $60.38. And I think the the markets are open. I'm not sure what the paper markets are doing. I'm sure they're up big as, they've been closed for 3 days. So you're going to get these initial big ticks in the morning. The Dow up 121 points after it was down 113 on Friday. So we're back to normal trading today, so I would expect the volume to be a little bit heavier today than what we've seen last week. NASDAQ is up 68 points already this morning, and the S&P is up 15. Yields, 10-year yield that's up 1.5%, so that's moving along. If there's any other interesting tidbits, Bitcoin did some dropping, but it's up 2.5% at 13.8. So we'll just see, what's going along in these markets. But I think it's going to be a very, very good year for gold and silver. And in our newsletter at Financial Survival, I'm going to have, that comes out, probably won't get done till later today. I'll just get caught up from, being closed for 3 days and, with the holidays last week. I'm going to have in Doug Nolan's commentary for December 30th. And he talks, and I'm just going to take some of his little comments out of his newsletter. And he talks about how 2017 was a phenomenal year in so many ways. He says it's going to be remembered for the tumultuous first year of the Trump presidency, the passage of major tax legislation, seemingly endless stock market records. It was a year of synchronized global growth, stock bull markets along with record low market volatility. It was the year of parabolic moves in Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies and blockchain, the future of money. So what else can go wrong? And he says, but yet none of those things that I just read, he writes about, is worthy of story of the year. He says for that he's turning to the eras of masters of the universe, the global central bankers. 2017 was a fateful year of central bank failure to tighten financial conditions in the face of bubbling market and economies. And what he talks about is the markets of quantitative easing for stimulus from these major countries. The floodgates were open for debt. And I really do agree with him. That really is the story of 2017. And the loose global financial conditions were fed by Chinese credit growth. You had corporate debt. I mean, you just look at everything that has fueled. And all this debt is basically what fueled the endless stock market records and the synchronized global growth and the stock bull markets. And it really puts things into perspective. We can cheer about what a great year 2017 was in all these various areas. But what underlies that growth? You know, we talk about the central banks printing until the cows come home. Folks, they just opened the floodgates. They opened the floodgates in 2017. Regulations were changed. You have banking regulations are changing. And everybody says that's great for the United States, and it will be, might be temporarily good for this country. But in the long run, you cannot, and there's no way when you're talking about the trillions and trillions and trillions of global debt, 450% of GDPs, plus and minus, can continue without a calamity at the end. And are we going to see that calamity in 2018? You know, markets, you know, we talk about this, are dominated by greed and fear. Central banks eliminated the fear. They eliminated fear. There's no fear. And when you think back and you see how, you know, the various decades have performed, I mean, you know, there's always fear can be healthy.
Yes.
A little bit of fear
is
healthy. It can be. And but now, all this debt, it's all accepted as normal. Debt is not normal. Not when you have the world that is, and it's like, well, you know, they got it this far. Maybe they can just continue it, and maybe this is just the way we now live. No, there's an end game, ladies and gentlemen. And it's not going to be good. I don't care how many cheerleaders we have out there. I don't care how temporary things will seem to be better. I don't care how high the stock markets can go. This is going to end very badly. And this is what Doug Nolan writes about. And he writes about how everything is accepted for no, and I liked his one, he says, not to be a party pooper. And that's pretty much what 2017 was. The central banks convinced the markets the party doesn't have to end. Let the good times roll the dice. And he goes on, not to be a party pooper, but it's not a good idea to rouse a crowd of drunks with the idea that plentiful hair of the dog will be available to nurse through any potential hangover. And that is exactly, it's not good. And it is, you know, people believe that these bull markets are going on forever. Capitalism without downturns. So it's a very good article. Go to my website, dgscoins.com. Go to the little mailbox, and you can sign up for the weekly newsletter. Beth Ann also puts an article in there. But this will be the lead story going into the newsletter this week. So,
all right. So he trumped my article, huh? My article was just a Happy New Year's article, and it's one that I wrote several years ago, and it means a lot to me because we talk about a new year, but every day is a new day, and I think that's what we're talking about now with the finances and things that are going on with the currencies. And, we've got all these, like you said, it doesn't matter how many cheerleaders you have, this is what's going to happen. I have an article that was from actually Christmas Day, and it was in the Wall Street Journal. And it caught my eye, Melody, because of the title on it. Local banks, local lending drying up in rural America. Rural America always seems to get hurt, Financial lending is drying up in small communities around the country, making it harder for small businesses to stay up and running. This is coming out of the Wall Street Journal, and it's written by Kathy Burke. She says the kind of in-person banking crucial to many small businesses is disappearing as banks consolidate and close rural branches, the Journal reported. If you are not a big company with tons of assets and a big bank account, they just overlook you. And we know that that's true. I mean, it used to be, I know you lived in rural America. You lived here in Missouri for a time and around other places in the United States. But, farmers are small businesses. Even the big farmers, they're still a small business in comparison to some of these corporate individual farmers. I'm not talking about corporate ag. But they have to borrow at the first of the season to get their seed, to get their fertilizer, to get things going, before they can plant. So they borrow the money, and they know the banker. He lives right there with them. But that is a dying thing. That's becoming, the small business. The small banks are going out of business now. We still have that here in this area, but the small businesses in a lot of rural America, they're getting swallowed up by corporate banks, I guess, by the big banks. And you probably know more about that than I do. But it caught my eye because of the drying up in rural America, because I know how much the seasonal farmers and producers, that they need that ability to go in there and borrow the money to get started for the next season. And that's what they do. They take a little gamble, They've got to borrow the money for the seed because they were talking about a lot of bucks.
Well, yes, and certainly farmers don't make enough money that, they should be spending their own money. No one should go into debt, but we've made debt so available to everyone to run their businesses and everything. And, and that's one thing I don't do here at Discount Gold and Silver. I don't go in debt to run my company. I've never done that, never will do that. And so it's I'm not beholden to anyone. And it does happen. Back in 2008, where I live now, and in the Eastern Shore, banks did go after businesses to call in their loans because they didn't think these small businesses would be able to provide their payments, so they went in there and tried to shut them down. One was successful, the other one wasn't. The one guy had enough money, he had the attorneys that he could fight them. The other guy was a smaller guy, he didn't, and he lost his home and everything. He couldn't fight the attorney that was fighting him for it from the bank. So the attorney got his home, his beautiful big home and everything, and he's still in business and so forth, but he lost a lot. And it's because that's what these banks do. They'll decide whether these businesses think that they can, pay their loans in difficult times, and they'll call the loans. So it does happen. That was just a little area here in this part of Maryland, so who knows what happened everywhere else. And what I do hear is the music, Beth.
Yes, we hear the music. We're going into a break. Your calls are welcome at 717-300-1218, 717-300-1218. We are here. It is the new year, January 2nd of 2018. That's going to be hard to say as well as right. And Melody and Beth Ann will be right back.
Since the beginning of the United States, kings have sought it. Nations have fought for it. It has been traded, borrowed, purchased, and stolen.
Hear it first on FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net. Gold and silver is tremendously undervalued. Global demand vastly exceeds mine supply by more than 60% annually. There is little in the financial world more certain than a coming explosion in the prices of gold and silver. The U.S. dollar continues to lose value and respect as the world's reserve currency. Our nation faces challenges on many fronts, and a day doesn't pass without another economist bringing forth warnings of impending economic calamity. There has never been a better time than right now to acquire physical gold and silver. Discount Gold and Silver Trading was founded on the principles of truth and honesty. We believe in providing a quality product, quality service, and most importantly, competitive pricing. We provide all forms of precious metals, including American gold, silver, platinum, and rare investment and circulated coins. Silver bars, rounds, and 90% silver bags are on hand for the silver investor. Gold self-directed IRAs are available. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free, that's 1-800-375-4188.
Visit crosstheborder.org, C-R-O-S-S, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn. The Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Yuji. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the Scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a reestablished Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the 7 kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, C-R-O-S-S, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.
Years ahead of the dominant media, FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net.
There might be a few warm places, but it's not where I am, and I don't think it's where Melody is. Missouri and the Midwest, we're having some record cold time, and I guess it's supposed to be that way. It is winter. Never been a lover of cold weather, even when I was a little kid, Melody. I liked playing in the snow, but do you remember when you would get so cold your feet would just be frostbitten? And Mama would have us come in, and our feet would be just red because they were so cold. And she'd have us put them in kind of cold water in the tub and then slowly warm that back up to warm our feet back up. Did you ever do that?
I don't remember.
Don't remember.
I don't remember. I mean, I remember being cold, but it was just, we were, warmed up by either the stove or, something.
Yeah. And stove. We had a furnace, but but Mama would do that.
Had the stove.
You did not want to put your feet, if they were that cold, in hot water because it would sting like fire. So anyway, I'm remembering back, and I did like playing out in the snow. I did like do that, but I never have liked cold weather. Not even as a kid, I didn't like being cold.
I don't ever remember being cold as a child. I remember playing and sledding and, be out sledding, but I never,
Well, I guess I was a sissy.
I didn't want to say that.
I had a brother, a big brother that
warm your feet for you.
It was all of us. It was the three of us usually. My two older brothers and me, we were the ones that were out there playing the most together. And my oldest brother, he would chase me down, and he was 4 years older than I am. This is my Marine brother. He'd chase me down and catch me and then put my face in the snow and just hold it there in the snow. And I was crying one time, and Daddy didn't know what he'd done. Daddy said, "If you can't take the cold, don't go out there." I didn't tell. I just came in. All right, fine.
Yes, we did lots of sledding and everything. So, but yeah, I don't ever remembering disliking the cold until I was really older.
How old are you?
Until we had to walk those 2 miles to school every day in the winter
Uphill
time.
both ways.
Uphills both. Yeah. So.
That's when you know you have become your parents or your grandparents.
Yeah.
I have an article here. It's out of the New York Times. It says that business spending and investing, that they're spending and they're investing more as the Trump effect takes hold. I thought you'd get a big kick out of that. It says companies across the United States are enjoying an emotional boost from the Trump administration's tax reform package, which could translate into job creation and high wages, according to a new report. The New York Times wrote Monday, that's yesterday, that because the corporate tax cut that lowered the rate for 35% to from 35% to 22%, businesses are feeling more confident in their futures, despite the fact that the cuts haven't yet taken effect. And I thought that was interesting. It says it's an overall sense that you're not going to face any new regulatory fights. And this is coming from a Texas home builder. But
and that's exactly why.
And
that's exactly why I saw that the stock markets were rising so significantly. It was because it's you can call it emotional. You know, it was with the anticipation of the tax cuts, with the anticipation of spending and higher wages and more spending by the American consumer out there. It was all anticipation. It wasn't fueled by anything but hope. And hope can be very powerful, but on the other hand, very dangerous, because a lot of that hope is truly based on, again, debt. And it really irritated me. I saw quotes from Marco Rubio. This is what disgusts
he irritates me anyway.
This is what disgusts me about politicians. They have no backbone. You know, he wanted his little deal for the children.
Yes.
So he would vote for the tax cut bill, but then he comes out today or, later on and says, that the corporations are the ones that are getting too much. And I'm thinking to myself, now you come out and you whine about the corporations getting too much, but you got your little deal for the children. And that's what's wrong with these politicians. They'll do whatever they have to do to get their little deal, even though they believe the bill isn't good. And it's just like they vote for something, they pass a bill that they disagree with, that they might think it's not good for the American people, or, maybe there's, but yet they got what they wanted, so they'll just turn a blind eye and vote for whatever gets voted on. And it's just...
Yeah, but what he wanted was so unfair. What he wanted was so unfair to the average working American. Because what he wanted was a bigger tax return, a bigger tax, what do they call it, refund for those who don't pay taxes.
And he got it.
And he didn't get as much as he wanted it up to $2,000 per child.
Well, of course you ask for something more than what you really want, because that way you can back down.
But I'm saying he's willing to take it out of the mouths of the working Americans and give it to the mouths of those who don't work. Do I love the children? Yes, I love the children. But it's unfair, and I know life is not fair, to be giving to those. They're already on welfare. They're already receiving money from the government. And then they get a refund for something they never paid into. The majority of them don't pay into it. And it just infuriates me, because they're just out after votes. That's all they're after. It has nothing to do with helping the American people or helping businesses. Rubio could care less as long as he's getting elected.
I mean, his little deal, what he wanted was one thing, but negotiating and bargaining and making deals so
I
that
know.
he does get it. And then he turns around and says, well, the tax cut. Well, then what'd you... Oh, you got your little deal. I mean, it just exposes them wide open to who these people really are. And it doesn't seem to...
It doesn't seem to affect him.
Because now he'll have the votes in order to...
I call them D.C. occupiers occupying offices and cutting deals. That's what I call them.
Yep.
And that's exactly what they're doing. And it'd be one thing if those deals had anything to do with our Constitution. It'd be one thing if those deals had anything to do with making things better for America. But they're cutting deals with corporations, with lobbyists that are lobbying for corporations, and even foreign governments. They are not legislating. Cutting deals is not legislating for the American people and to make America better. It is not. It's making them rich. It's lining Rubio's pocket. He doesn't have any problem paying his bills. Well, he might, because I heard he's a spender, but I don't.
Well, if he's a senator long enough, those problems will go away.
Let's talk about these guys just a little bit. I got an article here that it just infuriates me. I get with the politicians like you get on the money situation, but I have this article here. It's a brief one. Both of them are, but this is what I'm not cutting any of the Republicans any slack, but it's the Democrats at this moment that are being mouthy. And Bernie Sanders vows he's made a New Year's resolution, Melody. Oh. And he has vowed, and he hopes everybody joins him to intensify his fight against Trump in 2018. So what it is to me, what the Democrats are saying is they will continue to do nothing for the American people, despite Donald Trump, despite the American people who elected him. They will continue to do nothing, and they will continue to ignore the U.S. Constitution, which is a contract between the American people and the elected officials, the D.C. occupiers occupying offices and cutting deals. They're going to continue to ignore that. They're going to continue to do nothing and just raise all get out all year long for 2018. Bernie, I don't know if he's up for re-election or not. Rubio is not. He will not be in 2018 because he was just elected after he couldn't get the presidency. And de Blasio is promising, good old New York, you deserve him, you elected him. De Blasio, he's vowing for a new progressive era in New York City. It's going to continue to get worse and worse and worse there. I don't get it. I don't know why you would elect somebody that will pick an illegal alien over a citizen of the city. And that's what de Blasio does. He has all kinds of stupidity there, and it's just, I put on the top of the article, way to go, New York. I mean, you vote him in, you deserve him. And I don't know why they want him or Cuomo, but they keep getting them.
They use the propaganda. It's just like, what I found on it, they use emotions. They use certain groups, and they make people believe, they manipulate people into believing this propaganda that this is the right thing to do. Most people don't want to see people hurting. Most people don't want, and they feed on that. They feed on those emotions.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just like the finances. They feed on those emotions in order to think that, hey, we're all going to get the lottery, that things are great, things are fine. It's this illusion that they've created. And it's, unless you view things that way, people get caught up into it. And even people with the best of intentions will get caught up into it because, again, they don't want to be, then they don't want to be viewed amongst their peers as, someone that is different. Everybody tries to fit. It's no different than high school. We all try to fit in. Just, I never did, but still don't.
Yes, you did.
No, I did. But, but that's what these politicians do. They feed on that, and it really is incredible when you realize what they're doing and how they're doing it.
And that's the purpose for categorizing and labeling the American people.
Absolutely.
That's the reason we are said to be white privileged if you're black male. If you're a white male, you're a black male. You're a white. We do have callers, and here we are just talking.
Just talking.
Sorry. I didn't even look at the. Oh, sorry. I apologize. Bring them in. We have Joe from Arkansas. Joe, how are you today?
Oh, I'm getting through this cold snap, and actually, this cold snap is not all that bad. I remember a time in the early 1980s, we had a week in January where every day for a week it was below zero. And so far in this cold snap, it hadn't even been below zero yet. And I don't think it's
what year was
we're on a warming trend. It was either 1981 or 82 or 83 or 80 or one of the years in the early 1980s, but I forget exactly what year it was.
In 1983.
But we had a week here in Arkansas, in northwest Arkansas, when every day in January for a week it was below zero. Okay. So we get some cold weather here sometimes. Nothing really unusual, although the news media are just hyping it up and pouring all kinds of emotion into it as they always do.
What do you got for us today, Joe?
Well, you were talking about the debt, and I want to talk about why I think things would actually be worse if we had gold and silver money, because. I read something by George Mason. He was describing, it seems to me the situation now is kind of similar to how we were in the early 1780s before the Constitution was ratified. I read something that George Mason wrote about the situation then. And he said that at that time, we had gold and silver money, but he said we were in a deep depression, and the reason was that England and other countries in Europe could produce stuff cheaper than we could, and there was no tariff on imported stuff at that time, he said. And so that the European countries, England especially, just poured in all kinds of stuff into our markets, cheaper than Americans could produce them, and all the money, all the gold and silver, was used to buy this imported stuff, and it was draining out of the country, so that all the money of the country, all the gold and silver of the country went to the European manufacturers and merchants and so on like that. And so if we had gold and silver money, of course, I think the similar situation would be similar now as it was then, because think of it, at least 75% of the time, probably more, whenever we buy something, the stuff comes from a foreign country. And so if we had gold and silver money, all our gold and silver would probably be drained out of the country by now, gone to China, gone to India, gone to Mexico, gone to whoever we're buying stuff from, and there would just be no money at all, hardly, in circulation in this country, to keep anything of the economy going. And so because of this situation, it's this fiat money system where they can create money out of nothing and we can borrow it, keep running up the debt, but at least there's still money in people's hands and circulating and, available to buy stuff.
But it isn't money, it's debt.
We actually have something of an economy going still at all.
It isn't money, it's debt. And the thing of it is, we wouldn't have lost our abilities to manufacture if we had stayed on the gold standard. If we had kept our gold-backed money, we wouldn't have the social programs we have today. Our government would not be as big as it is today. We would still be manufacturing, and we would still be able to control. Yeah, I mean, if you're comparing today's world's totally different. But the whole point of having a gold-backed money would have kept things in place. And what we have now is what happens now that we're in the position that we're in. The position that we're in today, how long? I mean, debt is not good. There isn't anything there. So, you could probably maybe debate both. I mean, there's a lot of things that you can debate. But, Joe, I don't think we would be in this position we are today, where we would have lost and to where we are today.
Well, as long as our markets are wide open, and as long as somebody in the big world out there, the United States is a big country, and people in the United States are hardworking and good and all this kind of stuff. But pretty much everything, in this big world, pretty much somebody somewhere can always produce pretty much anything cheaper than we can. And if our markets are just completely flooded, completely open and flooded with stuff from foreign countries, even if we did have gold and silver money, I think somebody in the world would be able to produce pretty much anything cheaper than we could, and so they would dominate our markets. And as long as we didn't have something to keep the money circulating inside the country instead of pouring it out of the country to buy imported stuff, which was underselling our stuff, we would have a very sluggish, kind of slow economy, even if we did have gold and silver money. That's what I think. Because the big world out there, pretty much everything, somebody can produce it cheaper than we can.
That may be so, but perhaps if we would have stayed with gold and silver money, perhaps those dollars would purchase more than what we've had today. We wouldn't have a $250,000+ median home price. Maybe we'd still have affordable homes. Maybe we would be in a place where, we wouldn't have people needing to be on welfare. Maybe we wouldn't need people to have food stamps. We wouldn't need to have $500,000 homes and, $1,500 apartments and people living on the streets. So again, what gold did by having a gold money was to keep things in perspective, was to keep accountability from government. We wouldn't be globalized today. Sure, we might have lost some business to cheaper things, but perhaps we wouldn't because of we wouldn't be as globalized as we are today. We wouldn't be going to America First this year because it would have always been America First. So.
Well, here's the way I see that. I think you're on the right track there. Here's the way I see that. If we would have kept gold and silver money, we wouldn't be as bad today, and that's because of the fiat money system. Because the bankers can create money out of nothing and loan it out for profit, they've gotten immensely richer than anybody else is or can hope to be, and therefore they can just absolutely dominate the news media, and they can dominate, the thoughts, the intellectual atmosphere, the colleges, everything. They can dominate the culture with the power of their money, and therefore, they have promoted this idea of globalization and free trade and all this kind of stuff, which has done so much to ruin our economy. And so if we get kept gold and silver money, with the Congress coining the money and regulating its value like the Constitution says, if Congress had kept control of the money system, then the bankers wouldn't be so much richer than everybody else, and they wouldn't be able to dominate the culture and the thinking of the country so much with their propaganda. And so we might not have gone to these trade deals, like NAFTA and GATT and everything that have done so much to run our country. We might have kept some good historical perspective. We might have kept some common sense. We might have kept some good nationalistic thinking, and we wouldn't have gone into these insane trade deals that have ruined the country so much in the first place.
They dominate. What they do is they dominate. They dominate and manipulate, and so they're in control of what they're doing, and it's all for their benefit, not for the American people or any other people in other nations that are doing the same thing with the fiat monies.
But there was always booms and busts of the economy. There's always recessions that the economy had, and it was always the bankers that controlled it. But what kept it at because we always had the busts, that was always gold and silver. Now they took gold and silver away as our money, and hey, again, open the floodgates. They have become more powerful and more wealthier. And if we would have stayed with the Constitution, that's just it. And you said so. If we would have stayed with the Constitution and what it requires us to do, we wouldn't have also lost our liberties and our freedoms along the way. So, gold and silver is very much. Now, how do we go to what happens now? There's arguments. I believe the system basically has to reset before we can have any other type of system. They will create a new system, a new monetary system. Most likely it will be globalized. It will be a globalization of our we've already have a globalization of our economies. The elite might be battling for the next 4 years. It might be a different new world order, but they're still out there fighting their battle. And so what my job is to help people protect themselves. And that's what people really need to do, is protect themselves against the unknown of how this is really going to play out. And when you have these, everything looks fine, the economies look like they're booming and everything, but it's all stimulated by central banks. It can't continue.
Yeah. Well, definitely we're being manipulated, and you know, they're keeping things going by the debt, but it's not helping. It's sustaining temporarily, and then we see it fluctuating, and of course the fluctuations happen with the other, but it's just I don't know, when they encourage everyone to live in debt, and I know that Joe doesn't do that, I know that you don't do that, and that's what they do. They encourage everyone, even when they were given the stimulus money, which just infuriated me, because we're going to give you this money. No, that was our money in the first place. They're going to stimulate, but get out and spend it. Don't save it. Don't pay your bills. Just get out there and spend it. Spend, and keep this thing going. Joe, thank you. Appreciate your call.
Can I ask one more question about gold and silver to Melody?
Quickly, because we're almost going into a break here.
Okay, I recently heard about a court decision, I think, that in California they cannot use a kind of mining that they've been doing to mine gold out of the rivers. The miners have been using some kind of a powerful suction machine, I think, to suck up gravel from the river bottoms and, go through it for gold and this kind of stuff. And there's been some kind of court decision now that to protect the environment, they're not allowed to do that kind of gold mining in California anymore. And so do you know anything about this, Melody, and do you think that's going to significantly affect either the supply or the price of gold or both? And I'll get off the air now and listen to the answer. Okay, thank you. Bye.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Joe. And the music.
I'll answer that when we come back.
When we come back, and we have Neil holding. So when we come back, we'll go to Neil after Melody answers Joe's question. You're listening to Power Talks with Melody and Beth Ann in the morning. The number to call to join us in conversation is 717-300-1218. That's 717-300-1218. You're going to have to hurry because we're heading into the final segment of today's show, and we'll be right back.
The Civil War did not end slavery, but it did put over 8 million black and white Southerners into the bondage of poverty. The Kennedy twins, authors of the best-selling book, The South Was Right, have done it again with their latest book, Punished with Poverty, The Suffering South. Did you know that slavery lasted 70 years longer in Massachusetts than it did in Mississippi? And did you know that until the end of the Civil War, the South was the wealthiest section in America, but since then...
Hear it first on FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net. Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188. The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on Internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the Internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening. Hear it first on FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net.
Places around the world, Tanzania, you've seen down in South America, that will have regulations and so forth on how to, they try to stop them, because they feel they're disrupting the water supply, poisoning the water supply and things like that. In fact, I was in Alaska one time when actually the miners actually won the court case against the EPA, and they were allowed to continue. Which one was Coeur d'Alene mines, I believe, in Alaska. They were prevented from mining. They won the case against the EPA, and that was the main reason. So, and I believe in California, being the state that it is, you have a lot of lawsuits going on, and there was a bill even going back to 2015 where the governor had signed into law to protect against, but these are usually smaller scale miners. Again, maybe Coeur d'Alene's not a small-scale miner. They were fighting the EPA, but, with what the governor had signed in California, it was more a reflection onto the smaller miners. So, absolutely, they're, it's the environmentalists who, try to prevent all of this, and, there's always lawsuits and so forth. Will it have the impact on gold? It depends on the size of these miners. I think sometimes if you, maybe in Tanzania, maybe in, South Africa where you have a lot of the gold mines and so forth, they can lose power and it can temporarily increase the price of gold and so forth. So it just depends on the amount of gold that is being mined from these individual places, I think, whether it would have an impact on the price of gold or not. Now, to say when we have a financial, when I do believe our money will be reset and so forth, and if you can't get the mines out of the gold due to certain regulations and so forth, that there will be a fallback on some of these smaller miners and so forth, and they can't get it out of the ground because of these regulations and restrictions, yeah, you can have a major impact on the price of gold. So, but that's my answer to that question. So it's for any mining, for any mineral or commodity that's mined, they're always fighting the EPA, they're always fighting the environmentalists, and it can have impacts depending on, the time, I believe. So.
All right. Well, we have Neil from Missouri. Neil, how are you today?
Oh, just kind of hobbling around. Weather gets cold like this, my knees start acting up. Old injuries from airborne training. Mm-hmm. But this thing on the fiat currency, gold and silver, doesn't make any difference. The reason the money leaves the country is because Congress has conspired with the international corporations to destroy our economy by allowing all this cheap crap to be dumped on our markets by not increasing the tariffs on it. That's what the tariffs are for. In fact, that's the only authorized money supply of the United States government is import duties. That's what they're supposed to be getting their income from, not from taxing the people. But the import duties would prevent all this cheap garbage from foreign countries from being dumped on our markets. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And they're not doing that. And that's what's destroyed our economy, and that's why we've lost all the small businesses throughout the United States, the small manufacturers, because they can't compete with these cheap imports. Now, the result of that has been, instead of the gold leaving the country and the silver, what's happened is now the land ownership has left the country. You know who the number one landowner in the United States is today?
China?
It's China. That's right. China owns more real estate by value, not by acreage, but by value. They own more real estate than anybody else in the United States. In fact, they own over half of downtown New York City. Over half the buildings in downtown New York City belong to the Chinese now. And they've bought up strip malls, across the entire United States. And all kinds of businesses, small businesses, anything that's looking like it's making money, they're buying those places up all across the United States. And they're doing it with the fiat currency that we exported to them by buying their cheap imports that they dumped on our markets to put all of our local manufacturers out of business. And one of the reasons for that is the globalists don't want us to have a manufacturing base any longer that can be used to produce small arms like we did during World War II to defend ourselves against the foreign powers, the Japanese and the Nazis and the Italians. Okay, that's the main thing. We don't have a manufacturing base any longer that can be converted to wartime manufacturing. Sure. I mean, I've seen guns, M1 Grants in World War II that had Singer Sewing Machine Company was manufacturing small arms for the United States government because they could retool their equipment in order to do that. We don't have that manufacturing base anymore. We can't even process our own hemp anymore. There's 18 states now where you can grow hemp legally. As long as you apply for a license and you're regulated by the state, you can grow hemp in the United States. But we no longer have the manufacturing base for turning that hemp into anything. We have to sell the hemp, to Canada mostly, because they have the processing facilities up there for turning the hemp into rope and clothing and paper and what have you. So and we can't process the hemp oil out of the seeds either. So that all goes to Canada. So basically, they've turned us into a third world agricultural country. And that's their intent, to destroy our economy and wipe out our manufacturing base and turn us into a third world country, along with all these invaders they're sending in here, from these
it was the cotton industry that took war against hemp because they couldn't compete with them. So they're the ones that started the war against hemp, and we can see how that has
they weren't the big money people behind the hemp thing, behind the whole marijuana scare. That was
I'm talking about
John D. Rockefeller and H. Randolph Hearst. Hearst owned millions of acres of timber, and of course Rockefeller owned the oil business. Well, when they started making clothing out of synthetics, they had to put hemp growers out of business, and of course you're making paper out of wood instead of hemp, which was cheaper and easier. They had to put the hemp growers out of business in order to eliminate the competition, and that's how they did it.
Exactly right.
Scare.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because you can't get high smoking hemp. Okay, hemp doesn't have enough THC in it to do any good. All it does give you a raging headache. You can't get high smoking hemp. But that's what the scare they used in order to eliminate the competition. That's all it is.
That was the war against it. Yep, it was competition. All right, appreciate it, Neil. Thank you. We're just about out of time, Melody.
And you know what?
Fast this morning.
And I'm going to go back. If we had stayed on a gold and silver, if we hadn't gone to a fiat currency, would we have had the Congress over the years that sold us out like they did? And perhaps to some degree, but I don't believe they would have had open reigns. And I believe gold and silver would have kept government growing to the degree that it has, and it would have kept a lot of the corruption. I mean, certainly they're always corrupt.
That's why they did it.
That's why they did it.
Because they knew what it. That's exactly why they did that. Yep. They shrugged their responsibility, gave it to the Federal Reserve.
Yep.
And eventually got us off the gold standard. They started the income tax. They, then they lied and started Social Security. It's just, people keep falling for their lies and their promises.
Yep.
And don't realize that every time we take something they can't give you anything before they take it away. They have to take it away from you before they can give you anything or give somebody else something. Just like we go back to the beginning of the show here, Marco Rubio, there would be no money to refund these people if he didn't first take it away from you.
Yep.
People need to remember that. They're making these promises to others, but they're taking it away from you. They can't give without taking away. D.C. is the biggest boom town right now, and it produces absolutely nothing.
And you know what? What I've been saying, we don't hear them talk about the debt ceiling. I mean, we know they extended it into, it was, December, 22nd, 16th or the 22nd. That had to have been tied to the tax bill. And that was the big push. Because now I saw a brief headline where that debt ceiling will have to be addressed in March. In March. And I thought, March? How did it get from December to March? And that was the deal, so.
Gracious. Just more manipulation. That's all that is.
All it is.
Deceit and manipulation. And we're out of time today. Melody and Beth Ann will be right back here tomorrow at the same time. Melody, have a great afternoon. Good luck with a Tuesday on a Monday after a holiday. And we will see you tomorrow. Have a wonderful day.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn. The Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Eugene. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the Scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a re-established Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the 7 kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.
The book of Revelation says, the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ. This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy Reality News app. Get it now.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.